My cheating ex-wife, who left me broke after our divorce, came crawling back 3 years later, demanding half of my lottery winnings and dragging me to court. So I made sure she regretted it. I'm a 39-year-old guy, and if you told me a few years ago that I'd win the lottery, I wouldn't have believed it. Back then, I was at my lowest, recently divorced, barely scraping by, feeling like the whole world was against me. My ex-wife walked away with a chunk of my savings and assets, thanks to a brutal divorce settlement. At the time, I swallowed the court's ruling, packed up my minimal belongings, and tried to rebuild my life piece by piece. I never imagined she'd resurface, greedier than before, once fortune finally shined on me. The lottery win was a lightning bolt out of nowhere. I bought a ticket on a whim, one of those spur-of-the-moment decisions at a gas station. I stuffed it into my jacket pocket and forgot about it until the nightly news announced the winning numbers. Even then, I didn't rush to check it. But the next morning, bored, I fished it out. My heart nearly exploded when I saw the numbers line up. It wasn't an earth-shattering billion-dollar jackpot, but it was enough millions that could forever change someone's life, especially someone starting over like me. I did everything by the book, hired a reputable attorney, kept my identity under wraps as much as possible, and set up a plan to handle the money responsibly. I upgraded to a modest home, replaced my old beater car, and cleared a few lingering debts. But I didn't go on any wild spending spree. Having been burned before by naive trust, I knew better than to broadcast my new wealth. Only a handful of close friends knew. My ex-wife was definitely not on that list. Fast forward 3 years later, my life felt stable. I'd invested some of the winnings, donated to a few local charities, and was enjoying a quiet, comfortable existence. Then, out of the blue, I got a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end sent chills down my spine. It was my ex-wife. She greeted me with a syrupy tone, acting like no time had passed. "How have you been?" she asked, as though we were old pals catching up. Stunned, I asked what she wanted. She danced around a question, spouting cliches about missing me, wondering how life had treated me, and so on. I cut to the chase. "Why are you calling?" She hesitated, then dropped a bomb. "I heard you came into some money. Mind if we meet?" My lawyer's warnings echoed in my head. Once people sniff out you have money, they circle like vultures. I told her I was busy, but she pressed, claiming she wanted to talk about unfinished business from our marriage. That was nonsense. Our divorce was final. Sensing trouble, I hung up, unsettled but resolved not to let her worm her way back in. A week later, she showed up at my house unannounced, leaning against a sleek rental car in my driveway. She gave me a wry smile. "Guess you forgot to mention you won the lottery," she said, faux casual, stepping inside as if invited. I stood my ground. "We're not married anymore. My finances are none of your concern." She scoffed, scanning my updated living room. "Oh, look at you now. New place, nicer furniture. Must be nice." I braced myself for whatever angle she was about to play. She perched on my couch, crossing her legs like she owned a place, and started spinning her tale. She talked about regrets, how life after our divorce hadn't gone the way she hoped, how she'd realized what we had was special, how maybe we could start over. But her eyes kept flicking around the room, taking in the upgrades, confirming her suspicions that I was indeed in a better financial situation. I felt a twinge of old bitterness. This was the same woman who cheated on me and then hammered me in court for every dime. Now she wanted a second chance. I calmly asked her to leave. She refused, turning the conversation to support. She claimed she'd fallen on hard times, was jobless, behind on bills, and someone told her about my newfound wealth. The more she spoke, the more my anger simmered. Finally, she said, "Look, I think I'm entitled to part of your lottery winnings. After all, we were married." I nearly laughed. "We got divorced 3 years ago. You left me broke, remember?" She waved a hand. "That was different. Now you have money that, in a way, we should have had together." The entitlement was jaw-dropping. She asked for a substantial check, half to be exact, claiming it was only fair. "We spent years together, and you wouldn't be where you are without me," she argued. I reminded her that she cheated, that the divorce was finalized, and that the lottery windfall happened well after we split. None of that mattered to her. She threatened legal action, insisting some states have laws about marital assets if won within a certain period. I called that bluff, pointing out the timeline. The ticket was purchased, and the winnings claimed long after the divorce was final. Even if she tried, the law didn't support her. But she smirked, as if already plotting a new plan. Days later, I got served with court papers. She was taking me to court, claiming my lottery prize was concealed marital property or unreported winnings during the divorce. I nearly punched a wall in frustration. My attorney assured me I had nothing to fear if I showed the timeline and the official date of the winning ticket. But it still meant we'd have to go to court, which was time-consuming and stressful. I half expected her to drop the case once she realized she had no legal standing. But she pushed forward, likely hoping for a settlement. Maybe she banked on me, caving to avoid legal fees or publicity. At the same time, she ramped up the pressure, sending me manipulative texts. "You owe me for the emotional torment of our marriage, or don't you want to do the right thing?" She even tried guilt. "I heard your father's side of the family always taught generosity, or does that not apply to me?" My lawyer advised me to stay calm, document everything, and prepare for the hearing. I found myself recalling how she left me broken, both financially and emotionally, after her betrayal. The heartbreak I'd endured, the night spent on a friend's couch because I had no funds for rent. And now she was galloping back, demanding half of money she never earned or had any right to claim. On the morning of the hearing, I arrived at the courthouse feeling a swirl of anxiety and anger. My attorney met me by the steps, giving a reassuring nod. Once inside, I spotted my ex-wife leaning against a marble pillar, dressed to impress, exuding confidence. Her new attorney paced nearby, flipping through papers. When we locked eyes, she sneered, as if to say, "We'll see who wins." The proceedings began. Her attorney spun a story about how we were married for years, how I allegedly purchased the winning ticket before the divorce was final, or that I'd hidden the winning date. They tried painting me as deceitful, claiming I'd always planned to hide the jackpot. My attorney calmly produced the official lottery documentation, complete with purchase date, claiming date, and my bank statements that showed how the deposit occurred nearly a year after our divorce was finalized. He argued there was no basis for her claim, no overlap with marital assets. The judge nodded, carefully reviewing the evidence. My ex took the stand, tears flowing on cue, talking about how she felt cheated, how the future she believed we'd have. The judge asked pointed questions. "Did you or your ex-husband finalize your divorce on date?" She admitted yes. Was the lottery ticket purchased and claimed afterwards? She had to concede the documents indicated so. She tried to spin emotional angles, claiming she contributed to my well-being, that she was the reason I even had the money to buy a ticket. The judge remained unmoved. I watched with a strange mix of pity and satisfaction. She'd thought a tearful performance could sway the court. But facts were facts. My attorney hammered home the timeline, the lack of any legal standing for post-divorce assets. Then the judge made his decision, throwing out her case as baseless. He reprimanded her for wasting the court's time and strongly suggested she refrain from further litigation on this matter. Before the gavel dropped, her attorney tried a last-ditch motion for an appeal. The judge brushed it aside, explaining there was zero ground to proceed. My ex-wife's face burned with anger. She glared at me, as if I'd personally betrayed her again. I steeled myself, ignoring her silent fury. My attorney shook my hand, congratulating me. I exhaled, relief flooding in. But the drama wasn't over. Outside the courtroom, she confronted me in the hallway, her voice low and venomous. "You'll regret making me look like a fool," she snapped. I just shrugged. "You did that yourself by dragging me to court with no cause." She cursed me, threatened further attempts to ruin my life. I saw the emptiness behind her threats. She had no cards left to play. In the weeks following the court's ruling, I felt a renewed sense of freedom. My ex-wife's attempt to claim half of my lottery winnings had backfired spectacularly, leaving her with legal fees and a reputation for frivolous litigation. Friends and acquaintances who heard about the fiasco mostly sided with me, understanding how unscrupulous her demand was. She, on the other hand, tried spinning a sob story about how I'd somehow cheated her out of her rightful fortune, but few believed it. I won't lie, there was a dose of satisfaction in seeing her plot crumble. 4 years after our divorce, I'd replayed the betrayal of her cheating, how she left me penniless. It haunted me, but I worked hard to climb out of that hole. Then fortune arrived in the form of a lottery win, ironically after she was long gone. Her returning only to attempt taking half felt like a twisted coda to our marriage. Now justice was served. She not only failed, but ended up owing her own legal bills. One might wonder if I felt any pity for her. A small part of me recognized she might be struggling financially, and desperation led her to this insane stunt. But the larger truth was that she'd shown no remorse for her past deeds. She demanded something that wasn't hers, and tried lying to the court for personal gain. Compassion for such behavior? Hard to muster. Some people asked if I considered offering her a settlement to avoid court drama. The answer? Absolutely not. She had zero rightful claim to my post-divorce windfall, and she left me in the dust, cheating and draining my accounts. So no, I wasn't about to give her a single cent, especially after she tried to sabotage me again. Now, I'm living a calmer life. I keep a modest profile, invest my winnings carefully, and avoid flaunting money. The memory of my ex-wife's greed remains a cautionary tale about trusting too easily and underestimating how far entitlement could drive someone. If her plan had succeeded, I'd be robbed of half my earnings. Instead, she ended up humiliated in court. And I can't say I'm sorry about that. Occasionally, rumors pop up that she's complaining about my coldness, that I shut her out even though we once shared vows. But that's the same logic that justified her original demand. A vow broken by her betrayal carries no weight once divorce is final. She lost any moral or legal ground the moment she cheated and bled me dry, then came sniffing around only when she smelled money. In the end, I made sure she regretted dragging me to court. She got nothing. The judge saw through her lies. My life moved on, while she was left to stew in the consequences of her greed. A classic example of someone trying to have their cake and eat it too, only to end up losing big. For me, it was a reaffirmation that sometimes revenge is just letting justice do its job, and in this case, the law was on my side. I can't think of a more satisfying conclusion.